Hey there, are you sitting down with a nice, delicious Brad's drink? Because this is your GG Replay for Friday, September 24th, 2021. GG Replay is, of course, your Monday, Wednesday, Friday podcast, bringing you the latest in gaming news, hosted by us, the Goodnight Groofs, a place for games and a place for some gosh darn goofs, I tell you. And we're workshopping the slogan, but I'm putting a little stank on it today. It's a Friday. We're coming out casual. We're having a great day today, or at least I am. Matt, how is your day going today? Is it also great?
I am having a great day. Game Groofs episode 14 went up this morning for patrons, so that's exciting.
Hey.
It was a good episode, a lot of good discussion, some good mini games. I love the trivia portion of the show. I love putting together the trivia stuff for you guys. It's always a lot of fun.
I'm so glad you love doing it because I love you love making it because I love playing the games too, and it's such a unique facet of that podcast that I think kind of elevates it a little bit. Because you're like, oh, who are these guys? Do I necessarily want to hear their opinion? Sure, but also the game is so fun. You want to play along at home, and it's just like an enjoyable thing. So yeah.
Yeah. So check that. If you're a patron, check that out. If you're not a patron, $3 gets you early access. But if not, that's fine. It comes out to everyone on Sundays.
Absolutely. Now, normally on Fridays, we have a little tradition here where we do start off talking about soda facts as Matt sits there sipping his Coca-Cola, his knockoff Brad's drink, as we all know is the original name for Pepsi for a short 5-year stint. And I think Matt and I both came to play today with a couple of soda facts. So Matt, do you want to get us started here?
Yeah, I'll get started. I got 2 facts, and they sort of run into each other. So first, Paul, let's go all the way back to the very, very beginning.
I'm there.
The first carbonated drink that was created artificially is older than you might think. It was created back in 1767. That's before America.
Whoa.
It was founded by Joseph Priestley. He was a chemist from Sweden. Okay, now, however, this is according to factslegend.org. Joseph Priestley is not considered the father of soda. That title actually goes to Jacob Schwepp, who was a jeweler, a German-Swiss jeweler. He took Joseph Priestley's findings, came up with a practical process of carbonated mineral water manufacturing, and then he did this in the late 18th century. So he's considered the father of soda, even though he used Joseph Priestley's techniques. So let's put some respect on Joseph Priestley's name on this here podcast, because you know what? He's the grandfather of soda.
Wow, the grandfather of soda. I want to say the grandfather of soda might be Schwepp's dad, but I think Priestley. That would be an interesting discovery, that if Priestley turned out to actually be the illegitimate father of Schwepp.
Ooh,
this would be something to consider. I love that fact. Is that that's the twofer we got there?
That's the twofer.
I love that. Really, really good. Now I'm sure you may have seen my fact before. It's not necessarily the newest thing, but I don't know if you do you know the origins of Fanta, Matt? Fanta?
A little bit. I know it has to do with World War II era Germany. That's something to do with it.
It sure does. So actually with Fanta, for those of you who don't know, is a Coca-Cola product. Well, Germany in World War II had some issues. There was a U.S. embargo put on them. So there was a U.S. embargo put on. I mean, depending on who you're listening to, they were doing great, but I think generally we see that as a problem.
Yeah.
They had the U.S. put an embargo, a trade embargo on Germany during World War II for just a lot of reasons, and so they couldn't really get all of the things that to make Coca-Cola, which is kind of a North American derived drink, an American derived drink. And so Max Keith, the head of Coca-Cola Deutschland, actually came up with a new product called Fanta, where they used what he described the leftovers of leftovers products, including beet sugar, whey, and apple pomace. And they just kind of threw this together as the delicious Nazi replacement for Coca-Cola, and it stuck around and became a cultural touchstone in Deutschland, in Germany, and then it moved its way around the world, and now Fanta is a regular Coca-Cola product that we all know and some love. and you are drinking the leftovers of what Nazi Germany had kicking around. So, if you're a Fanta fan, there you go. That's something to make you think while you're enjoying your Fanta.
I used to really love Fanta. I drank it a lot. Now, here's my question. This original concoction, was it like a knockoff cola or was it the original orange?
Yeah, no, it was not a knockoff cola. I think it was its own, like it was kind of like the original Fanta. It had the orange logo and everything, and I think it was based on that original flavor. I think that they've kept that flavoring until now.
Wow, okay. Interesting.
Yeah, they had to make a totally different drink because the stuff to make cola really just was not available at all to them. So it was a
Right, right.
very different thing. So yeah,
Good
kind of
stuff.
interesting. Yeah, good stuff. So there's some fun soda facts for you. We still have not reached the bottom of the barrel yet. We have interesting ones all the time. But you know what, Matt? This is a gaming podcast. So if you haven't tuned out in the last 5 minutes, we have some awesome, interesting stuff to talk about to you about gaming, if that made grammatical sense. Now, before we get started, I just want to remind everyone that if you come across any necessary corrections in today's episode, please send them to ggreplayshow@gmail.com or head down to the YouTube comments below so we can address them in the next episode. Matt, the reviews are in, man. They're just in.
They're in?
There's reviews. It's pretty exciting. I don't need to shed about it today. I will tell you, we have some pretty interesting games here to talk about, and some high scores too. There's really not a low score in the bunch, which is interesting to talk about. So starting off strong here with Flynn, Son of Crimson. Got a 2D platformer game here, and it looks darn imaginative. Got an 82 on OpenCritic. It is out now. And this just looks like a hoot and a holler, I tell you. It's has that real classic Zelda feel almost, sort of. Not in like the gameplay, but in the feel of this like mystical world, and it's very kind of whimsical, but it takes itself seriously in the storytelling aspects. It looks really, really great. I think the big dog is cool.
Yeah.
I went through and watched the reviews, and the gameplay seems really interesting and engaging. I find it interesting that there's like an easy, normal, and hard mode. Actually, was kind of interesting. So you can kind of play. I feel like rarely in 2D platformers is there
Mhm.
is there usually a toggle like that.
Yeah, that's
That's
right.
kind of interesting. Yeah, Matt, what did you think here? Were you sold on the whimsy?
It's a beautiful looking game. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
very, very colorful. Lots of colors that really pop. Even like the main character's hair, that bright red really pops.
Yeah.
I really like the look of it. It looks like something I would like to try actually. And I'm not typically into
Mm-hmm.
this sort of thing. As far as platformers and adventure games, I'm more so into, the 3D kind of stuff. I just don't really have the Super Nintendo nostalgia. If I were a little bit older, maybe.
Yeah.
But it looks really interesting. I may give this a shot. Is it PC only? Is it Switch? Is it Game Pass? Do we know what this is on? It looks like
Yes,
it's
Matt. It is. Yeah, you're gonna find that on Switch, PS4, Windows, or Xbox or Mac if you're running that. So you can actually play this on your Switch, which I think would be a cool place to
that
play
would be a
this.
good
But it
place.
is.
Yeah, yeah. This would this
Yeah.
would be a fun Switch game, I think. But if it's
Yeah.
on, maybe it's on Game Pass.
Actually, you know what? I think it is actually. Give me 2 seconds. Even though I think I saw it on there the other day,
It
and I
is,
really,
yeah.
yep, it
It is
is.
on Game
So yep.
Pass.
So that's really cool. Yeah, so there's something for y'all out there. I think now, remembering that's on Game Pass after watching the review, I probably actually will give this a download and give it a go. I've been playing a lot of 2D games, not a lot, but a few. But they're more like roguelites, like Dead Cells, or I've been playing. I tried playing Celeste for a while, but that obviously has like a pretty hard difficulty ramp, which is intended based
Yeah.
on how the game is presented. But at the same time, too, I just feel like playing a classic 2D adventure game might be the next step for me in my maybe regression to 2D gaming. And
Yeah.
so I never really gone through and played a game like that. So I think maybe I'll give that a try. I think a lot of the 2D games I end up trying to play, like Undertale or Lisa or things, have like a lot of RPG mechanics and stuff that
Mhm.
kind of bog me down. So I think this might be the right move for me. Maybe I'll get in and play this.
A lot of good games
Uh,
like this.
Ton of good games like this. I just watched a great video game donkey video where he was talking about like people are so worried about how much games cost, new games, and obviously we're a gaming podcast. We talk about new games all the time, but there's such a deep backlog of amazing games out there
Too
that like,
much.
and I've touched nothing. I've touched barely any of them. So it's awesome to just go, oh, I could just get so many games for free on Game Pass or so many other places. And we did touch on that a little bit too on Game Grooves this week as well, so you can hear that. Now moving on to something I'm very excited about, Sable. This is an adventure game, got a 75 on OpenCritic, totally respectable score. It is out now. This game is day one on Game Pass as well. It's on Xbox and PC. This game looks like a total experience. My first thought is like Journey,
Mm-hmm.
kind of, but more to it in terms of like some gameplay, climbing mechanics. We have cool. We have this like speeder bike thing, which I love that kind of
That
traversal.
looks really cool.
The art style is just totally amazing. It's just unique. I've never seen anything like this where it looks like it's out of a sketchbook. The colors are really like muted, but also deep. And in general, like you said, Matt, there's like a stop motion move about that. We were talking about that before the show, and I feel like I like that. It reminds me of like that, like Into the Spider-Verse. So there's like kind of like a frame droppy movement, that low frame rate. I don't know. I just really love it. I will be playing this game this weekend, I think, at some point or another, and I'm excited to get into it a little bit and try to give myself over to it because the sound design also is really incredible. This like Japanese indie band made a lot of the music for it,
Oh
and
wow.
I am just I'm very entranced by this, so I'm excited to try it.
Yeah, no, it when you mentioned that looks sort of like a sketch almost, and the stop motion, I immediately thought like a flip book almost. The way that your
Yes.
character runs almost looks like a flip book at times.
It's
Yeah,
like the Aha, like the Take on Me music video or whatever, like that classic one where the person gets pulled into like the paint, like
I
you know what I'm
can't
talking
I
about? The
can't
sketchbook?
I feel like I've seen it but I can't think of it right now.
Yeah, all good.
But yeah, it looks really cool. Some of the puzzles look really interesting, some not as interesting.
Yep.
I will say it's a non-combat game. It really like it looks to me like that's, and I'm not saying every game has to have combat, but to me it looks like that's sort of what it's missing and it could have used some of it. I'm not saying you have to have a bunch of filler trash enemies everywhere, but maybe a couple fights here and there, maybe a couple boss fights, mini bosses here and there. It just looks to me like that's what it's missing, and that's why its score is a little bit lower. I don't know. I didn't read into all the reviews. I just kind of watched some gameplay, but I'm wondering if that's why it is, mid 70s, not upper 70s, not 80s, because it really does look really, really beautiful. It
Hmm.
looks like it's solid gameplay. The puzzles look okay. The movement, like you said, with that speeder bike looks really fun. The world looks interesting. So I wonder if it is just missing that little extra bit of combat that you would find in a similar type of game.
So to speak to that, I mean, watching some reviews and looking at it, I don't feel that missing piece for combat personally. I know, like, I don't know if you saw like the basic premise of the game was that you're in this like culture where a certain age you get like kicked out and you have to go wander the wastes basically and kind of
Oh wow,
find what
cool.
you're and you wear different masks and basically you have to. It's kind of like the masks we wear in life and you have to like figure out what your aptitude is if you're more of a whatever your job or whatever place you're going to find in society. And so you go to these different cultures and you have to kind of like learn about them and figure out what you're going to become. Which I think that when with that background, it feels a little more like makes more sense to me that there isn't a whole bunch of combat. I think that exploring that world makes a bit more sense without having to have combat. But at the same time, too, I think one of the things I saw was a major complaint about this game is that they just didn't do enough. That these like a lot of these cultures you go to are so interesting and you want to learn about the world and you want to learn
Okay.
more about the characters. And the second you go there, you do like one quest and then it's just done. They're just you can't learn anymore.
I
And so
gotcha.
people are kind of like, these are really fascinating ideas and fascinating, concepts and characters, and you really can't do much with them beyond just kind of like the shallow initial look of them, which kind of stinks because it does look like it's cool. So I think I'll enjoy it, and then I'll have to like find a bunch of fan fiction or something online.
Yeah, there you go.
There we go. Moving on, got to roll through these reviews. We got so much to talk about today. Diablo 2 Resurrected. It's Diablo 2. I don't need to tell you more about it. Got an 83 on OpenCritic. It's out now. Pretty good score, obviously. I mean, again, it's Diablo 2 with a facelift, and they really did not reinvent the wheel here. Makes sense. Diablo 2 is an incredible game. Was and is an incredible game. And I think one of the only things that keeps people from going back and playing it sometimes now is just that it looked a bit dated. So I think this, and you forget sometimes how dated it looks. This is one of those classic experiences, I think, I'll see footage from Diablo 2 Resurrected. I'll be like, that looks kind of like how I remember Diablo 2, right? And then I'll look at footage from the original Diablo 2
Right.
and I'll be like, oh, that's what it like in my head I thought it looked better. And so yeah, I think when you compare the two, this is like a clear upgrade and definitely makes it more playable. I myself am probably gonna hold off right now. I'm still kind of like iffy about buying Blizzard stuff right now, but at the same time too, I'm really excited. Like I love Diablo 2, so I'll wait it out and I'm gonna see how things shake out. But this looks like an awesome game, and they totally nailed it.
What you said about the visual memories of the game reminds me of when the Spyro trilogy came out and Crash Insane trilogy. That's like how we remember those games looking.
Yeah,
You go back, it looks nothing like that, obviously.
looks like garbage.
I've never played a Diablo game, ever.
I know.
Never
I
played
know.
Diablo 1, never played Diablo 2, never played
Didn't you
Diablo
play
3.
3 a little bit or no?
Maybe, very
Maybe for like,
little.
I think you bought it and we played it for like one night. And you're like,
You know
fuck
what? I
this
think
shit.
they had like a
They did.
trial version or something like that I might
Yeah,
have
that sounds right.
jumped into. You know, I think that I'm more willing to play it on console than PC. So, I'd be potentially interested in something like that. I think I'm just gonna like hold off for Diablo 4 though. I don't know. I don't have the nostalgia for Diablo 2. So I don't know.
So that's the thing. Yeah, I think a lot of people, not just nostalgia, but even people who were like never played it. If you exist and you're interested in this type of game, and you didn't play Diablo, it's kind of weird. But if for some reason you didn't, I think there's a lot of people looking for this kind of style of game. And Diablo 3 went in a totally different direction, and 4 is probably going to go in the same direction and be a more looter shooter kind of grindy thing. A little bit different, but yeah, I will say I agree with you on console. I played Diablo 2 a heck of a lot, and on PC. But having played Diablo 3 on console, I actually think that control scheme is so good. I think treating it like a twin stick shooter almost,
Yeah.
where you're moving and then aiming with the control stick. I just find that really satisfying and works so well for Diablo 3. And I think that also would translate super well to Diablo 2. And yeah, I just think that's a really definitive, cool way to play that game. And I find it more satisfying than the click to move in original Diablo. But that's just me. But yeah,
See, I really liked. I think it was Baldur's Gate: Dark Alliance
sure,
on
classic
console
game.
back in the day, and so that's why to me, since I hadn't played Diablo and I didn't play a lot of CRPGs and stuff like that,
Mhm.
to me, I just feel more comfortable with that sort of game on console.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. I've never thought of that from your perspective, from that perspective before when you talked about not enjoying Diablo. But I get that. That makes a lot of sense. But yeah, clearly isometric CRPG and RPG games are coming back in a big way.
Yeah, they are.
And so, I mean, I think this is just more proof of concept for that. So pretty cool. And moving on to our final game that got a rave review. A rave review here. Death Stranding Director's Cut. This is the second Strand type game that we've seen in the world here. It's an action adventure game. Got an 88 on OpenCritic. Out now. That's great. That's the same score as Deathloop last week, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty friggin' awesome. Now it got 83 for the original Death Stranding, so they eked 5 more points out, which is pretty cool. Those extra 5 points were for adding gameplay,
Yeah.
which is cool. What do you think, Matt? Are you is this gonna get you to finally play Death Stranding? Is the director's cut the thing that you needed to urge you along?
Yeah, it is. I'm not gonna buy it at full price, but I will buy it on a sale. I've got my on my phone here. I've got the PS Prices app or PS Deals app,
Mhm.
and you set up your watch list, your wish list, whatever, and it'll alert you as soon as the game goes on sale. So
Imagine this were an ad right now, by the way. This would be the smoothest ad transition
it would
ever.
be, it would
It's
be.
absolutely not. I wish it were. PS Deals if you're ever interested.
So I've already got the director's cut set up on there, and whenever it goes 25% off, 50% off, hopefully that would be awesome. I'll pick it up. But yeah, I don't want to buy it at full price though, just in case it's not my thing.
I totally get that. I think it's gonna be a cool game to experience no matter what, and I think even I'll at some point play Death Stranding, even though I'm kind of a holdout, just for that world building aspect and thing. It seems really interesting. I'm not crazy about watching like an hour long movie cinematic, but we'll see. I don't know if Death Stranding actually has those, but I know that is kind of a Kojima thing. So
I think if it doesn't have an hour long cinematic, I think it has something probably pretty close.
Something close, yeah. So we'll see. I wonder if I can skip those and still enjoy the game. Spoiler alert: absolutely not. Yeah. So
You'll
pretty
be more
cool.
lost than you already are.
Yeah, I'm very, very confused. All I know is there's Norman Reedus and a fetus, and that should have been the alt title of the game. Also, just a little tidbit of information that we got here. 79% of critics recommended the original game, but now 96% are recommending the director's cut. That's a darn 96 on Rotten Tomatoes, basically. That's fantastic. Everyone's saying, you know what, go out and play this game. And the 4% that aren't, I don't know, they probably hate innovation, I tell you. All right. Let's talk about the main stories of the day because we got a bunch. Yeah, that's right. That's right. We're this far in, we haven't talked about the stories. Okay, it's Friday and it is packed today, I tell you. Nintendo Direct happened yesterday. You're probably like, what? Why haven't they talked about Nintendo Direct yet? Well, we're getting there, okay? So we're talking about Nintendo. I don't know why I'm so mad at everyone today. Nintendo Direct happened yesterday, and it was something. It was something interesting. Matt, you watched this live. I did not. I've only watched tidbits, so I didn't get the experience of that weird show that you got. The anticipation that kind of fell flat in a lot of ways. Let's talk about some of the stuff. Now, this was something that the first thing, something that was heavily not leaked. I wouldn't say leaked, but heavily rumored. A lot of people felt like this was just there was like a growing feel that this is something that was going to happen, and that is adding N64 emulation to the Switch. But that was not just N64 emulation. This is also Sega Genesis emulation, which is pretty interesting because those are not the same generation. It's funny that they announced this at the same time, but I guess that makes they're both pretty iconic. Things that had not really made it to emulation on Nintendo consoles before, really. So interesting little headlines for this. It's going to cost more. It's what they call an expansion pack to Nintendo Switch Online. It's going to make Nintendo Switch Online more expensive if you want this feature. So that's a thing. And in addition, it's actually pretty cool. They have Mario games, they have Zelda games. Mario 64 is on there. Mario Kart 64. You have Ocarina of Time. I think in an expansion later, we're going to get Banjo-Kazooie, Majora's Mask, and some other cool stuff. So, it's definitely not a bad thing per se, but it's a little out there. And one last thing they did obviously come out with an N64 and Sega Genesis controller as well. These are like direct remakes of the original controllers. Obviously, we've yet to see how they feel. I wonder about like the changes in technology and the changes in like not technology necessarily, but manufacturing processes. If that's going to change how they feel versus like the original versions of the console, especially with the N64. I wonder if that control stick will feel the same. And those are $50 US each. And they are wireless, which is actually pretty cool. I think that's really the most interesting part of it is to like hold a wireless N64 controller. Just seems crazy to me because I know that like obviously a lot of companies on like Amazon, resellers will make like a fake Genesis looking controller, but I've never seen anyone actually go ahead and try to make an N64 controller. Matt, what do you make of Nintendo Switch's online expansion pack? And is this going to be enough to get you to pay more?
I guess maybe it depends. I don't know. It depends how much more it is. They didn't say. The general speculation is that it's going to be $5 more, but we really don't know for sure. I think that the controller options are cool. I wonder if they're going to be focusing on the weight of the controller. The N64, it's obviously not going to have a rumble pack, so I don't know. That it's kind of strange because the technology is just different now, and Nintendo was always weird with that kind of thing, where that you put a rumble pack in the controller. Didn't you put your memory card for your N64 in the controller as well? Or am I wrong on that?
No, I don't think you there was a slot for that on the N64, but what you did do, there was another thing where you could put Game Boy games in the controller,
Oh yeah,
and
yeah,
that
yeah,
could
yeah.
let you do stuff in Pokemon Stadium, I think, and some other games too. It was a lot of weird stuff.
Yeah, so I don't know. I will say on the last replay we were discussing the possibility of this, and I said zero chance it has Mario and Zelda games because I figured they could just repackage those and sell them separately. Turns out they actually do have Mario and Zelda games. That really shocked me.
You also said no N64 controller.
I also said no N64 controller. I thought that would be ridiculous. Of course, it's Nintendo, so
it's Nintendo.
What they do is actually ridiculous. So This is intriguing. I really don't think it should cost more. Nintendo Switch Online is already not enough for the money, even though it is the cheapest online service. You're just not
By
really
a lot.
getting anything for it.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'll probably end up getting it just because I'm a sucker. So, and I kind of want to play Banjo Kazooie. So I'll probably end up
Yeah.
doing it.
Well, if you want to play Banjo-Kazooie, it may interest you in Rare Replay on Xbox and maybe PC. I don't think so. I think it's only on Xbox. Fantastic, and it has Banjo-Kazooie and Banjo-Tooie on there, which is a lot of fun. And nuts and bolts if you're into that.
Ooh.
Yeah, but it is interesting to see Banjo back on a Nintendo console. Something I didn't think was going to happen. I wonder what the rights were like with Rare and Microsoft and how that went down. I mean, it hasn't even been announced. Like, it's been announced it's going to come to the service in the future. So I wonder if that's still being hammered out or talked about. But it is interesting to see Rare and Microsoft play nice here with Nintendo. But I mean, that is kind of those guys are more fast friends than Sony.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, because like Nintendo published the original Banjo Kazooie, so I wonder if they just have publishing rights to that version of the game.
Yeah, but I mean, like Rare was able to make Rare Replay, and that has Kazooie and Tooie and everything on it. So I mean, like, I wonder.
Yeah, I don't
I'd have
know.
to look into the publishing, but I was always under the impression that Nintendo pretty much didn't have anything related to that anymore. But I don't know 100%. Okay, but yeah, pretty cool stuff. I actually would love to play. It's easy to find a way to play Mario 64 and things like that online, but I'd love to do that or enjoy Ocarina of Time or something like that. I've been really, if it comes to like playing old games, 64 is really my jam. And I would love to be able to do that. It's another selling feature for me to maybe one day get a Switch. Maybe I'll be one of those suckers who never bought a Switch and I'll be the OLED Switch buyer, but I doubt it. But maybe. But yeah, I will echo what you're saying about online. The price is dirt cheap, but like still, the service is dirt poor. I mean, you have their solution for voice chat is use your phone. The games have bad net code and like aren't very good at like playing online across the world. There's huge latency issues. And then in addition, emulation kind of stinks and they barely have anything on there. And then they finally have something that, actually might make it worthwhile to have the service and they want to charge more money for it. It's like, Nintendo,
Yeah.
you're being Nintendo, guys. You quit it. Quit it. But you know what? They did have a consolation prize for us. They did announce a new Super Mario Brothers movie. Do you remember the Super Mario Brothers movie? John Leguizamo, all that stuff. Didn't you love that as a kid?
I have seen it.
The creepy Koopas.
Yeah, very strange movie.
Very strange movie. Well, you know what? Nintendo's out to right that wrong. Nintendo famously has shied away from movies a lot since that period. There's been a lot of articles and things written about how Nintendo is very careful not to make movies now because of how poorly that went with Super Mario Brothers movie. Well, they're coming out with a new Super Mario Brothers movie, and it is a doozy. Now, this is not live action, but it has plenty of live action actors that we know very well. It's supposed to come out next holiday, 2022. And oh boy. I'm gonna go through the list of the actors, Matt, and you can just give me like a little, maybe like a one word reaction. We have Chris Pratt as Mario.
Oh no.
Charlie Day as Luigi.
Okay.
Okay. Jack Black as Bowser.
Rock on.
Rock on, yeah, absolutely. Anya Taylor-Joy as Peach.
No comment. I don't know what to say about that one. So
we got comment. Keegan-Michael Key as Toad.
So okay, I can dig it.
Yeah, we got Fred Armisen as Cranky Kong.
Believe it or not, straight to the Mushroom Kingdom.
It's the Mushroom Kingdom, believe it or not. Just overcook, undercook. And of course, one of my favorites, Seth Rogen as Donkey Kong.
Yeah, I don't know about that one.
Matt, what's your take on this? You watched this be announced live. Obviously, we've seen Chris Pratt too. I don't know if you saw his Instagram video where he told this like weird sob story about how he was like a kid and he wanted to play the Super Mario arcade game, but he was too poor and he kept stealing quarters out of the wishing well to play it because it was like the coolest thing ever and wishes come true. It's like, Chris Pratt, you goddamn man, you're getting crazy. A hot take here, insufferable. I find Chris Pratt at this point. That's my one hot take. My least favorite thing about this movie announcement. Matt, how do you feel?
So the only one that I really have strong feelings on is Chris Pratt as Mario. I don't dislike Chris Pratt. I just think that this is weird, and I'm very curious to see what their direction for Mario is going to be. Now, I also sort of am confident that so everyone's shitting on this whole thing right now. I feel like this is going to be one of those cases where Chris Pratt just fucking nails it, and then the Reddit threads and the Twitter threads are all about like, oh my god, he actually did such a great job. I was so surprised. Like I can totally see it being that sort of scenario. Now, it's really gonna have to wow me because I don't right now. I don't see how that's gonna work. Have you seen? I linked this in the Discord. Have you seen someone superimposed like Seth Rogen's laugh over a video of Donkey Kong?
I didn't watch it yet, no, but I honestly feel like Seth Rogen as Donkey Kong is different, but a really good take. I wouldn't mind if Donkey Kong just has this like weird bro stoner vibe like going forward. I think it's a really funny take for Donkey Kong because I've never really found him to be a super compelling character as it is. So I don't know. I think that's really funny. I'll have to check that out after. But this is where we should have a great sound clip of that.
It's weird because
Although it's just Seth Rogen laughing.
obviously you named Fred Armisen as Cranky Kong, so Cranky Kong is in this movie.
It's a pretty obscure character to have in a Mario movie.
Spike is in this movie.
Yeah.
Like I'm very curious to see what they're going for. I wonder if it's going to play a lot like what was that movie that had like video game character cameos in it? Wreck-It Ralph.
Wreck-It Ralph.
Yeah.
I actually love Wreck-It Ralph.
I wonder if it's going to have that same sort of like tone.
That's what I'm thinking too, like making fun of video games, being kind of like more meta about it,
Right.
almost like doing not Deadpool, but like doing that meta humor. I think a lot of good kids content and cartoon content now has that kind of vibe where they kind of make fun of itself and they play about how weird it is that they're using characters that aren't necessarily cool characters like Mario and things like that. So that's possible. I also have to say I don't have high hopes, mainly based on Illumination. I just Minions.
I was just gonna say,
I'm worried we're gonna get Minions.
There's gonna be Minions in this movie, absolutely.
Yeah,
it's gonna.
Obviously, there'll be Minion cameos. I just have a feeling, but also I just feel like, what can they Minionize? That's my worry. What is going to become? Are we gonna have toads
Goombas,
everywhere?
Maybe I don't know.
Yeah, Goombas. Like, are Goombas gonna become like a weird? We have like a little side thing where halfway through the story we go off and we start looking at Goombas doing goofy stuff. I don't know. We'll have to see. I'm obviously is a weird word. I'll probably watch it one day. I don't know if I'll actually even. We'll have to see how good it actually looks. If it ends up being kind of standard kid fare, I probably won't even bother. But I am a little curious, mainly to be honest, to see Jack Black and just like all these people. Keegan-Michael Key as Toad is such a weird and hilarious thing. Like that alone makes me think that maybe this could be something. I do worry though it's star power casting.
I just imagine like this really like high-pitched manic Toad with Keegan
running around like all crazy. yeah.
which is kind of funny.
It's really funny. I don't know. I think you're right about the pulling off the voice thing. It's not, we have voice coaches here. We have, dedicated teams. Nintendo has a lot of money to put behind this. I'm sure Illumination does too. It doesn't seem unbelievable to me at all that all of these actors could be, getting their voices, obviously doing different voices, doing cartoon voices and making them good. I don't think we're gonna get Chris Pratt being Chris Pratt. I made a joke the other day about like Chris Pratt being like Lego Movie Chris Pratt. I don't even think that's the case. I think he'll probably do a fine voice. I think they all will. It's more just about the content, and also it's one of those things that like if Chris Pratt's voice is so good as Mario, but it sounds mostly like Mario, why did we use Chris Pratt? These are the kind of questions, right? So it's like, okay, we'll have to see how much I want to see them get like original character designs a little bit or like voices, but I also want to see them use those actors as those actors because that's the whole point, I guess. I don't want it just to be like, hey, we got this name, look at us, because that's a very Illumination thing to do too.
Do you think we're gonna get a Pharrell song?
I think it's pretty possible, yeah. You know what? The craziest casting for me, honestly, did you see Kim Kardashian as Birdo?
What?
No. I saw that everyone's doing like meme fan casting now. It's like the funniest thing that you couldn't imagine. Someone's like Zendaya really as like Michi and all that stuff. It's pretty funny, but I saw the Kim Kardashian as Birdo before I realized it was like everyone was doing this as a meme, and I was like, is that a real fucking thing? Like, it sounds real. It sounds like it's some ridiculous thing they would do.
That is funny. Maybe it'll be like an Olivia Rodrigo song. I recently learned about who she is, and I know she's popular fantastic right now. So
Rachel and I listen to a lot of her album in the car,
All
Sour.
right.
It's a great album. She's legitimately quite good, quite good. It's a great album if you're a teen and you're just discovering emotions. All
Well,
right.
I'm not, so.
No, but if you recall that time, Matt.
Okay, well.
All right, and we're moving on, and we're talking about the big game announcement they had here. I would say this is the big game announcement. It is Kirby and the Forgotten Land. Now this is pretty cool. This is post-apocalyptic Kirby. This is the Last of Us Kirby edition.
Mhm.
I have to say, right off the bat, I did see people saying, and I think this is really interesting to note. I guess this is like a Kirby lore thing, right? So I think you and I really both, neither of us really paid attention to Kirby lore, but I did
No.
like a shallow dive, right? And I guess that like that's a thing that in a lot of these Kirby games, old Kirby games that they used to make, there was always like an end boss that was really kind of fucked up and very like Lovecraftian or like
Huh.
bloody and weird. Like it always got dark towards the end, and the games had this kind of dark undertone, and that got more and more common as the series went on. And so a lot. There was also this thing was like this ice planet that you go to that's kind of or like sea that like seems like this forgotten kind of like desolate planet that had like an ice age or something, and that looked a lot like Earth. So there's a lot of like
Okay.
people thinking there's like this might exist in that universe, Earth might exist in that universe. So here we are coming to the Forgotten Planet. This looks a lot like a planet where it's our planet, but we fucked it up and we're all gone. Pretty interesting take. It's really awesome. I love the idea of taking this kind of dark concept and then overlaying kind of cute music and Kirby stuff and colors on it. But ultimately, you know, there's still something underneath there. And hopefully, if there's some kind of concept where they could take that and then towards the end of the game unravel that a bit, like we've heard here, where they could have like a darker end boss or something kind of a little bit, messed up towards the end. I'm very, very interested. This game really grabbed my attention.
It's a 3D Kirby, which is
Never
new.
done.
It's
Never
a
done.
open-ish world, it looks like.
Yep.
Like you said, post-apocalyptic. So yeah, this is intriguing. At first when I saw the trailer, I'm like, not really interested. And then like 5 minutes later, I started thinking, I was like, you know what? Maybe this could be pretty good. Now it really is
Yep.
growing on me. And now I am really interested in this game. You know me. 3D platformers, love them,
Yeah.
willing to give any of them a shot. I just haven't been interested in Kirby before because we haven't gotten this kind of 3D take on Kirby. And so now I'm thinking, okay, I might want to give this a shot. If it's got to be good though. If I don't want to pay the full $60, and we're never gonna get a sale price because it's Nintendo, so
Yep.
I really do hope that it's good. But if it is, this could be a pretty good entry into the 3D platformer catalog.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think we've been seeing a lot of characters they didn't know exactly what to do with, sidelined a little bit to these 2D, very creative 2D games like Yoshi's Woolly World or Kirby has like those Dreamland games and some interesting things. And then you see them in Smash and you see them in other properties and Mario Kart, but you don't always it sounded like I said Mario Kart. So I was waiting for someone to be like, "Did you say Mario Kart?" But yeah, you see Kirby and I just think it's cool they finally got it right. I think it was smart for them to wait until they really feel like they had the technology and the way to do it just right. Honestly, I think one of the only downsides or one of the only things that kind of is unfortunate here is that they did it first with Mario Odyssey. They blew their wad on Mario Odyssey for this kind of concept, and then they kind of reused it for Kirby. This whole idea of like taking over, sucking up enemies, and then you have their powers. They did this with Cappy in Mario Odyssey, and obviously that was great in Mario Odyssey. But even in Mario Odyssey, people were kind of like, "That's a strange thing to do with
Right.
Mario. That's kind of an interesting take, right? It doesn't really come from anywhere, but it's cool." Um, and in that, I mean, that was kind of a Kirby move. And so now, it's cool that Kirby's doing it, but now it's kind of like, oh, we saw that before. That's not as novel as it once was. Seeing Kirby take on the powers, I'm like, well, that's just another neat portion. It could have been like a more of a groundbreaking Kirby thing to do. But that said, I think Nintendo has a few more of the building blocks there now, I think, from Mario Odyssey and things like that to use for this game, and even for that power set and it just looks like a total blast. I think the movement for Kirby, the sucking up enemies, everything looks so creative. All the different power sets when you change what kind of Kirby you are by sucking up different enemies looks so fun, and actually looks like it lasts a long time into the game. Looks like you can do boss fights differently and things like that potentially by sucking up different enemies, maybe, or holding those power sets for longer, versus those just being things that happen in like certain stages. Not 100% sure, but yeah, it looks like a total blast, and I'm actually pretty excited about this. This again, these are things that like I just keep going like these are things that would sell me on a Switch, and then I'll get them later and I'll buy them on a sale. But then you can't buy them on a
Yeah,
sale. No matter when I buy a
doesn't
Switch,
happen.
these games will be the same price. So I may as well just buy them at launch. But yeah, looks really really cool. Just a couple more things to touch on before we stop talking about Nintendo for the day. First off, Bayonetta 3 coming in 2022. Cool. I don't follow Bayonetta. I've never played a Bayonetta. Matt, any Bayonetta
No,
stuff to say?
not
Yeah.
particularly. Not. It's just
Really
not my
exciting for
thing.
people. Yeah, really exciting for people who play those games. Have a great time. I know it's a big announcement for a lot of people. Also, an announcement of an announcement in typical Nintendo fashion. This is something that Mike likes to the other our other game group here. Mike likes to talk about. The final Super Smash Bros. Ultimate Fighter is will be revealed on October 5th. So they didn't actually announce the fighter. They just said they will announce the fighter on October 5th.
I fully anticipate this to be underwhelming. You know, I think a lot of people are hoping for a Master Chief. I don't. I think the last one is going to be a Nintendo character, of
I think the
course.
last one's going to be another JRPG character.
It's
I'm calling
possible.
it.
It's
I'm
possible.
calling it. Or maybe another character from ARMS.
I don't even want to speculate on this because we're not going to be right. So
No, I'm trying to speculate the worst possible thing, and then that's what I did with Nintendo the other day, and I ended up being right.
true.
You're like, new Joy-Cons, they fixed the drift. I was like, no, no. Worst possible thing they could make is an N64 controller. It was the worst thing they've ever made, and there you go. All right, moving on. Another thing there, Splatoon 3 was announced. Looks like they're really focusing more on single player here, which is pretty cool. I think it's always like Return of the Mammalians or something.
Yeah,
Kind of a
something
just
like
like
that.
I don't know a lot about the Splatoon lore. I will say though, I just don't like a group called the Mammalians. Just kind of sounds gross to me.
Well, it's because
Imagine, like,
they're all squids, right? So
yeah,
like it's the I don't know the return or the rise, whatever it is of
yeah,
I don't know. It's like I think Splatoon is a post apocalyptic world where it's only the squids I think that are around or something like that. I don't know.
yeah.
I haven't played Splatoon. I mentioned it yesterday in the Discord during the event that I would totally give it a shot if it was on PC. It's never
Hmm.
going to be.
Hmm.
I just don't want to play what is really just a shooter on Switch.
Hmm.
It's not my thing.
Yeah. All right. Also, Triangle Strategy launches March 4th, 2022. A little early birthday gift to me. Triangle Strategy. I don't know what that is. Do you know what that is?
You've seen Octopath Traveler, right?
Yes. Yes.
It's basically that.
Okay, cool. Well, it's exciting. A lot of cool JRPG announcements for people. It's not really my thing. Castlevania Advanced Collection is now available for $20. That is a good deal. That looks like a total blast. I've actually been really wanting to get into playing some old school Castlevania games, and I've heard these advanced games are super good. So that's probably a good pickup, actually.
Yeah,
So
same
that's
here.
pretty cool.
This package is pretty intriguing.
Yeah, again, talking about like wanting to get into some classic like adventure 2D games that aren't necessarily like a roguelite or something. I think this would be a lot of fun. All right, let's stop talking about Nintendo now, and also get through our final few stories of the day. Because man, we're just spinning our wheels today. There's just so many interesting things to talk about, and I really think this direct needed to be taken down a little bit. All right, let's talk about it. The initiative announced on Twitter that they will be partnering with Crystal Dynamics on development of Perfect Dark. So we've been kind of waiting for more stuff on Perfect Dark. We knew it's in development. We knew that it's being worked on by the initiative. But yeah, we're getting news now that Crystal Dynamics is involved in that as well. Obviously, Crystal Dynamics has worked with Microsoft in the past on like the Tomb Raider games and that kind of stuff, which would like had timed releases and things.
Yeah, it was a 1 year time to release,
Yeah,
at least for the first one.
I think for the first one, yeah. They also stated that they're still early in development. Well, that's fine. It's Perfect Dark. Get it right, you know. The initiative is led by Daryl Gallagher, who had previously been a studio head at Crystal Dynamics, so it makes sense, obviously, that they would be partnering with people they may already know. But yeah, a little strange because Microsoft, really has been playing up the initiative. They actually use the term, which I always kind of jokingly sometimes use too, quadruple A studio, which is kind of interesting because now they're partnering with another studio. Why do they need the help? They are a huge studio. I mean, it'd be one thing if they kind of absorbed or they tried to like poach people from Crystal Dynamics or something, but it's interesting that you're using the entire studio in some ways, or they're trying to partner with that studio. And of course, Crystal Dynamics, we love Tomb Raider. I think those games were really a great way to bring that franchise back, almost a kind of a definitive way to play the Tomb Raider games. I think they really brought something new and fresh. But at the same time, Avengers, Marvel's Avengers. That game is really hit and miss. I think some people can get something out of it, but I think Colossally has been seen as pretty mediocre in most ways and
Yeah.
full of microtransactions and games as a service stuff. So, Crystal Dynamics has a bit of a stink on them at this point that they didn't have maybe, a couple years ago before this Avengers thing really started kicking off. Matt, what do you think? Do you think this hampers? Do you think this is a bad sign for development for Perfect Dark that we're seeing these multiple studios collaborate, or do you think this is kind of a strange thing to see? Is this a bad sign for the initiative that maybe they're not, living up to what they're supposed to be, purported as?
It's kind of weird because Microsoft owns Rare. Why not have Rare help out because they are the original Perfect Dark crew, So that's kind of strange.
I guess the main thing there is like talent is really, really different. I don't think anyone at
Yeah.
Rare is the people who were Rare 20 years ago, right?
I guess. Yeah, that makes sense. Now, the initiative is, I don't think we have exact numbers on how big the studio is. I saw people speculating it's around 70, which would be a larger, like mid-sized studio. But then at the same time, why are you calling it a quadruple A studio and then getting help from a company outside of Microsoft to help develop it? That's so strange to me.
Especially when MS owns so many studios now. They're making a big point of how many studios they bought. Couldn't they just put a couple on the game?
Yeah, that just really doesn't make sense. It's like, is the initiative this super team that's going to create the biggest budget games of all time? Or is it actually just a small studio that's going to help Crystal Dynamics lead the project? Like what's really going on here? Who's really owning this project here? I don't know. It gives me a little bit of concern. I also think that Perfect Dark is kind of a strange flagship project for this team that Microsoft put together that's supposed to be the heavy hitters. Yep. I'm not like super interested in Perfect Dark. I was never a big Perfect Dark fan. I know there are people that are, but I also know that there are other properties you could work with, or you could have new, unique, original IP. I just don't know if Perfect Dark is the big, heavy-hitting seller that they think it is.
I think they'll have to. I think maybe the idea with Perfect Dark is not just nostalgia, but also that there was maybe something there. I don't know a ton about it, but like the seeds of the story and the setting, might really lend themselves. The studio might believe this really lends itself to becoming this big new IP that almost feels like a new IP to other people because there's so much to do with it. That being said, I agree with you. I think Perfect Dark is kind of a weird choice. I think, if they have a good idea and a good vision for it, then I mean, it's probably just as good as a new IP. There's a lot to do with it, and it's untouched. I think in a lot of ways, it's only been kind of briefly looked at over the years. But yeah, I agree with you. Who's leading this? Crystal Dynamics, the initiative? Is this it's a first party game, but but how much of it is a first party game? Will this affect the release of the game or where it is, what consoles it's on? Very interesting. Very, very interesting to see this. I feel like I'm wondering, it feels like Microsoft would just buy Crystal Dynamics. Like it feels like Microsoft almost probably wanted to buy Crystal Dynamics and then couldn't. And so, or they, for whatever reason, and so they've kind of made like their own version, and clearly that's not good enough. So they have to maybe partner with them anyway. I don't know. It's strange.
That would be interesting if they snatched them up from Square. That'd be kind of.
It would be a big thing. Yeah.
I'm curious to see who's gonna play Joanna Dark.
Yeah.
I could see like I don't know. I feel like it could be something like Ashley Birch or something like that. I don't know if she's the right fit for that, but she's a very popular female voice actor in games right now. I'm trying to think of totally escaping me right now. I'll come up with her name, but yeah, there's someone who I think would be really good for.
May I interest you in an Anya Taylor-Joy?
She's too busy playing Princess Peach.
She's too busy as Princess Peach, even though I honestly feel like Joanna Dark would probably be a better role for Anya Taylor-Joy based on her skill set. But Have to see. Just before we get to the last story of the day, I just want to remind everyone out there that if you can just take a quick moment out of your busy day and just open up your podcast app while you're listening to this and just give us a quick 5-star review or a thumbs up wherever you are, it means the world to us. It's so awesome. It really, really helps us get higher up in the algorithm. And, it's a nice cheap way to give us a hand. It's so cheap, it's free, which is a pretty good deal, I'll tell you. So yeah, if you don't mind just doing that, maybe leaving a comment on the YouTube video if you're feeling really generous, or a review on our podcast page, that would be really, really awesome. And we really appreciate it. All
Laura
right.
Bailey was the one that I was thinking of.
Laura Bailey. Yeah, she's fantastic. Hey, correct me if I'm wrong, but hasn't she been in some like first party Sony games as well? I think
Yeah, she was in The Last of Us
Uncharted and
Part 2.
stuff, or Last of Us Part 2, right. All right. Moving on to the final story of the day. Kind of an interesting one to look at here. Far Cry 6 will not feature ray tracing on PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X/S, as reported by Tech Radar. Pretty interesting. They will have ray tracing in the game, but it will be a PC-only feature. According to Ubisoft, quote, on console, our objective has been to take advantage of new hardware capabilities. Well, not all of them. Optimizing performance, targeting 4K, and achieving 60 frames per second, for instance, all while ensuring that the experience on the previous generation of console would remain consistent. So here's my main take on this, and it's interesting. I feel like this reminds me of when they first added 4K to like the One X and stuff like that. It's like, yeah, we could do it, but we'd rather target something that plays better. And so it's like 4K 60 is something they can maybe do feasibly on the top end consoles, and that's awesome. Or maybe like 1440 QHD 60 maybe on the Series S, or 1080p 60, which is really, really cool. But on the flip side, they can't just include everything. And ray tracing obviously can exist on these consoles, but it's not going to probably exist at the same time as 60 frames per second, super HD environments. And so, I think that's a good trade-off to make. It's a little disappointing to not see ray tracing, but honestly, I think this talk about like the older generation of console and that kind of thing, yeah, that's disappointing, but I honestly feel like if they really wanted to add ray tracing, I don't think the issue was more that they wanted to like just get away with making it on both consoles in the same way. I honestly feel like it was probably just that it's just not going to fly with 60 FPS.
Yeah, and I think that's mostly an early generational thing. I'm obviously kind of disappointed by this because I do want to play Far Cry on PS5. But I think it's just going to be a few years before we see this become standard for console games. This is always the case. It takes them a little while. It takes developers, specifically third party, takes them a little bit extra time to figure out how to optimize for both consoles and get the most use out of the hardware. So it's just going to take a little while. This happens every generation.
And I mean, ray tracing just takes so much, so much. I can't think of what I'm trying to
Processing
say,
power.
but yeah, processing power, and it's just intense. And I feel like it's only a couple years that we've really been working on this stuff with like the RTX cards from Nvidia and things like that. Ray tracing obviously has existed for a while, but to use it at the level we've all started adding it in games, I think it's pretty reasonable to expect that these consoles can do it, and that's awesome. But it's not necessarily their target. I think their target is 4K first and foremost, and trying to get those high frame rates. I think that's the big thing about this generation, more so than ray tracing. But I agree with what you're saying, Matt, that will be something we'll see later. I think probably updated versions of these consoles, maybe like a 1X version of the Series X, some kind of like updated power thing we're going to get for all these consoles later on down the line, a pro version. It's funny to say because I mean these are already extremely powerful and good and high value units for what they are.
Right.
That'll probably bring us ray tracing, which I think is pretty cool. I mean, obviously we have it, but that'll bring us the power to do it and uphold those frames. But yeah, you look at something like Control, which I mean, the whole game is almost like a showcase for ray tracing, and that famously even on PC runs very intensively, is very, very tough to run at full graphics with RTX on. So it's a burgeoning technology.
We'll get there. We'll get there.
Yeah. You know what? If you're unhappy about that, you can go out and buy an RTX 3060 for the low price of $2,000 from a scalper. So there you go. That's your flip side here. It's not like anyone else is out there playing ray traced games, because you can't even get a ray traced graphics card if you wanted to. So you're not missing out on a whole bunch here. It's just the way it is. All right, Matt. That's it. That's Friday. That's Friday at GG Replay here. But before we go, I just want to remind everyone at home before you go off and have a fantastic weekend. I'm sure maybe you're pulling into the driveway, or maybe you have a longer commute and you're about to listen to something way more interesting after this. But I just want to remind you before you go that we do have a whole website, goodnightgroofs.com, where we have our blog, we have videos, we have reviews coming soon that we're working on, which is pretty cool. One for Deathloop coming out, and also possibly one for Kena Bridge of Spirits from Matt and some other stuff too. So pretty exciting. And we also have, podcasts, including this one and Game Groups, which is our all-encompassing weekly gaming podcast, which of course comes out Sunday. Also, good to remember, we have a Patreon. If you're feeling extra generous, we do have a Patreon, patreon.com/goodnightgroofs. We have a $1, $3, and $5 tier. The $3 tier does get you early access to that show, Game Grooves. Normally it comes out on Sunday, but you can listen to it Friday. You can listen to it right now. The newest episode just came out today. If you are a $3 Patreon patron, and even if you're just feeling like kicking us an extra buck, we do also take suggestions, and you have direct access to talk to us on our Patreon. And you know what? It's just a darn nice thing to do. And we really, really appreciate it. And right now we're extra friendly too. So we might even give you like a shout out or something, even if you're a $1 Patreon patron, just to be nice guys. And I think that's it for the day. Matt, do you have anything else to add before we head out of here for this wonderful Friday?
This just in, Paul. A new voice actor announced for the Mario movie. Bowser Jr. will be voiced by Al Pacino.
Oh, wow. Coming hot off of his whimsical role in Jack and Jill, where he danced around talking about Dunkachinos.
Yeah.
This is, I think it's actually a sequel to that character's story, which is crazy. They're doing a different take on Bowser Jr., and he's actually a Dunkin' Donuts ad. All right. Well, that is going to be it for this episode of GG Replay for Friday, September 24th, 2021. We'll be back on Monday, and also before Monday, don't forget that on Sunday you can listen to Game Groofs. If you are not a patron, you can listen to that on Sunday, and it'll be a total blast. It's a great episode. And also we might have a review coming up for Deathloop very soon. Not sure when that's going to come out. Might be out by Monday. I don't know, but that's something to keep an eye out for. So make sure you go over to our YouTube and subscribe to Goodnight Groofs on YouTube so you can catch that the second it comes out. Have a great weekend, and Goodnight Groofs.